nutritional solutions to counteract the negative impact. So this is our topic, and you find here the sequence. And it is an honor for me to have a number of experts with us who will present latest science on this topic. So I will do a very short introduction about the nutrient intake, a global view. Then one of my colleagues will talk about vitamin E. And then we enter the topic impact of air pollution in human health, nutritional modulation of inflammation, airways disease. Then we will have the break, the lunch break, and then continue with nutritional solutions. And last but not least, with variants in chemical mixtures of air pollution. And with a panel discussion. I will later on introduce the different speakers. Let me start with the nutrient intake. And this is very much along the lines which I talked on what I talked before. So remember, what was the message in the presentations in the morning? It was said that a number of factors influence our life expectancy. It starts with the 1,000 days window, with genetics, life course events, education, employment, and they impact a number of risk factors like inflammation, oxidative stress, metabolic stress, and so on. And they define our aging trajectory. And this was the message in the morning. A number of them are modifiable. So environmental risks, lifestyle, and nutrition. And as saying that, as they are modifiable, we can impact them. This slide is summarizing a slide from 2007, summarizing again the major diseases, and the slide on the right-hand side is ranking the different diseases, the top 10 diseases, and you realize top 1 is cardiovascular disease, followed by cancer, injuries, respiratory infections, and so on. And the different colors indicate what is nutrition-related, what is communicable diseases, and injuries. Look on this message again. Non-communicable diseases are the number 1 risk factor. Let's go to this slide. What do I want to say here? More and more people are living in urban areas, so this is a general trend. Let's look back, and in 1970 there were 2 megacities. It was about Tokyo and New York, so with more than 10 million people. 20 years later, what do we expect? It really run up to 9 megacities. Look on this. And again, 20 years later, already 23 megacities. So you see the trend. And what do we expect for the future? What do you want? What do you want to see? Yes, in just then 20 years again, it is expected that we have about 36 of these megacities, which impact quite a lot how we live, or if they impact our diets, trend to processed food, and megacities also require a lot of traffic. So this is summarized on this slide, or urbanization is impacting our lifestyle and health. So on one hand side, when you look, when you remember what kind of megacities were mentioned, 1 in 3 urban dwellers live in slums in these megacities. 1 billion worldwide. We face anyway an increase in motor vehicles. Urban air pollution, and this is data from WHO, kills around 4 million people each year around the world, mainly due to cardiovascular disease and respiratory diseases. Remember, this were in the top list before I mentioned. Also interesting, when we look in some details, for example, tuberculosis incidence is much higher in large cities. For example, 4 times higher in New York City, compared to the general US. And the major part of people with tuberculosis live in cities. So this demonstrates, let me say, the impact of living in a dense area. And last but not least, urban environments tend to discourage physical activity and promote, maybe it's a strong statement, promote, I say no, processed foods, whatever this is. And you see here some examples, some pictures of cities. This slide, and the colleagues will come to this later on, this is from an organization here in Europe, and it is saying the following. Let me start with a quote from WHO. They say about 80 to 90% of the world population lives in areas which does not fulfill the requirements, the recommendations of WHO in terms of air quality. And you see here on this bar the impact on life expectancies for people here in Europe. I do not go in details, it will come later on by the colleagues. Coming back to this slide I had before, or the three stress factors: inflammatory stress, metabolic stress, oxidative stress. Remember what I said before, it's a number of nutrients which are important and have to be in a kind of balance in order to manage and reduce these risks and provide all the health benefits. And if they are not in the right balance, they increase the risk for some of these disorders. Now, one of the issues is that we have recommendations in place. We know in principle what we should eat, and recommendations are in place in more or less all countries. We should take grains, vegetables, fruits, dairy products, protein foods, and so on. And we developed a kind of traffic light, expanded traffic light with 5 colors, and saying we give a red if more than 75% of populations do not follow these recommendations. And here you see the result. And I learned from the experts that in Australia, only 5% follow the recommendation. In the US, the same. And in Europe also, when we analyzed intake surveys, about 10%, 5 to 10% are following these guidelines. So there's a need to act. Or talking in a different word, an opportunity to act and provide the right intake. This is continued intake surveys from different countries, and again the red light is indicating where people do not get enough vitamins according to recommendations. However, intake surveys are often questioned, and status is much more important, that we know what is the status in populations. And we engaged with other organizations and developed a vitamin D map where we indicated what is the status in the different countries. And the outcome of this analysis is that the major part of the world population, about 88% of the world population, does not have the desired vitamin D status, and with all the consequences I mentioned. The same is true for vitamin E, and this is opening let me say, floor for the next presentation. We are right now working on an analysis on a map for vitamin E status. This is a snapshot for the US, and this slide is saying the following. If we define 30 micromole of vitamin E in the blood as optimal, as desired, you see here how much of the population is below recommendations. The colleagues will tell more about this. So my summary is, yes, the demographic changes, the lifestyle changes require adjustment of our food systems, and the global trend to urbanization with all the consequences on air pollution and other factors impact lifestyle and health. And food fortification, supplementation may be a good opportunity to complement diets for stress situations, and are solutions to counteract. So, in summary, the message is ensure the right intake. Now, I would like to open and introduce the next speaker, I would like to say we have summarized the different presentation in this brochure. We expected that this brochure is part of the handout, however it did not work out. So please visit our booth downstairs. You will have an opportunity to get one of the brochures with the major part of the presentations.